think I agree with you in saying that to say God is behind evolution is not, at least necessarily, a God of the gaps argument. I'm happy to say that there is very plausible reason for somebody to look at the majesty of the natural world and say, and the language coding of DNA, and say, yeah, there must be some intelligence behind this. For me, the question is then, well, is that argument or is that consideration convincing enough? I also agree with what you said about like language. I described it as an analogy, but when you mentioned computer coding, and I thought about binary code, a series of zeros and ones, which of course is only analogous to the words that I'm speaking in English, but to say that it's not really a language would be perhaps a sort of confusion of terms.
I think so. Yeah.
But okay.
Yes, binary language is language. And you've got the language of DNA, and then you've got a different language to make proteins. And so, in other words, guys, it's like you've got a set of instructions, and they're in Chinese. And then the actual things as they're put together, the language is English. And you have to translate the instructions into what you're actually building. That goes on in your cells. So you have multiple languages being spoken in your cells and being translated from one to another. Anyway, yes, if that makes perfect sense to you on naturalism, then I'd love to hear you explain it to me.
So the question for me then is whether I have good enough reason to think that a God might be behind this. You said that this process is something that no human mind could ever create. We can't create a bird. I think the reason we can't create a bird is because, firstly, we don't have enough time, because birds take, I don't know, probably billions of years. If we accept that evolution does begin with some single-celled organism, however that got to be there.
Yes. And
I'm happy to say, okay, perhaps there is some kind of intelligent creator of this first sort of prime biological being. Fine. If we then sort of track this process of evolution, the reason why a human mind can't create a bird is because it's not done by a direct, intelligent design. It's done by a sort of series of billions of years of trial and error, such that I could create a bird in the sense that if I could somehow set up some simple beginning conditions, I could then just sort of let it go in its environment, and in billions of years it would turn into a bird. The important
No, that's a huge leap.
This is a very... I love Alex O'Connor. I think he's very intelligent, but I don't understand how he got down this path of thinking, because I think it's a very very faulty process of thinking. How do you even get down there? You can't even begin to explain what it would mean or what it would look like to attempt to create a bird. The comparison that he makes here of trying to create something and then over time becoming a bird. I don't know. He just skipped like a billion steps.
Yeah, he actually. It sounded like he was saying, and I think if you, and I don't know what Lennox is going to respond, but yeah, I think if you let Alex explain himself a little more and point out some of the difficulties, I think he'd retract some of that or rephrase it, because it sounded like what he's saying. Hey, if I wanted to, no, of course I can't just directly create a bird. But if you just let me start off with an organism and I make an organism, like I make a single cell and just give it enough time, then that's how I'll create a bird. No, no, that's the issue. How are you getting from the single cell to the bird? There's, like, as you point out, there's a lot of steps in there. There are a lot of steps in there. In other words, if I wanted to create a bird, I would not just create a single cell and say, okay, I'll give it a few billion years. That would be anyway. Back to
one thing is getting it going. That's, to me, where the really important question is. It's not so much in the process of evolution that I discover something amazing.
Well, that's interesting, because to my mind, getting it going is one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
The origin of life is much harder, because you don't have life to
Yes.
give
No,
you all
I'm
that
agreeing with you.
variation.
I mean to say that to me is where the question is, like this mystery of how on earth would you get this
Well,
this
that's
initial
right.
Yeah. So he's saying, hey, once you have life, then it's no problem getting the rest through evolution. So yeah, the difficult step is getting life. No, it is a huge difficult step to get life, and it's good Alex is aware of that. Because lots of atheists, this is what I taught. Yeah, you get the right, chemical soup and so on, and eventually come together if you got enough time. And it's you're really, really lucky, but it could happen. No, you do the math. No, I mean, yeah, it's not logically impossible, but so unbelievably unlikely that you shouldn't put much confidence in something like that happening. But you also have tons and tons and tons of developments along the way that are also massively improbable. So yeah, I don't. It almost sounded like you were saying, yeah, once you got it, then yeah, the rest is no problem. No, it's nothing but problems for your view if you think it all happened naturally.
Yeah, I think if you just give Alex a chance to restate and rephrase this, I think he would do a better job. I think he just kind of tripped up here. But I think he pretty much got the idea.
Let's see.
But for me, what I'm saying is that once you have that, and even if you need God to get that, I don't think you then require this concept of intelligent design to describe the process that then goes on as it begins to replicate in environments that select for different qualities, if you know.
Everyone, Stephen Meyer, someone please suggest to Alex that he interview Stephen Meyer in exactly this way on that topic, specifically on that topic. Like, how do you get, matter of fact, have Stephen Meyer grant, just for argument's sake, grant a first living cell. Alex, then please tell him your view. And what's cool about Alex is he's open to correction and so on. Tell him your view that you don't think it's much of a problem getting from that one cell to all the species that we are familiar with and so on, and let him break it down for you. Let's see. Alyosha, just that there is no possible way to get that done in the time given. Oh, so that's, I asked Alyosha what you were saying. Yeah, so I'm guessing you're saying something along the lines of, matter of fact, this was also in Signature in the Cell. When you actually do the math, you can actually calculate. So you have lots of atheists who think, okay, so yeah, life forming on its own, yeah, it's improbable, but given enough time and we have a really big universe, all kinds of things are possible, so why not? Well, turns out it's way more complicated than you think. And the size of the universe and having billions of years actually doesn't help you at all. So you can actually do the math. And Stephen Meyer does this in Signature in the Cell. But basically, you can take the entire number of seconds since the Big Bang. So that's all the time you have. The number of seconds since the Big Bang. You can you multiply that by the number of particles in the entire universe. It's 10 to the 80th power. 10 to the 80th power particles in the entire universe. And then you say, okay, we have an upper limit at how fast these particles can be interacting. It would be the speed of light. So you take 10 to the 80th particles times 10 to the 80th particles, say that they're all interacting at the speed of light for the entire duration of the universe. You have the number of seconds, and that's sort of that's your total possible number of particle interactions. You can't have more particle interactions than that. That is the total number of particle interactions that you could have since the Big Bang. So that gives you a number. Then you can actually calculate the odds of a protein forming by chance, right? So proteins are, don't think of protein as like drinking a protein shake. Proteins are all the little parts in your cells that are doing all the work.
It
right?
actually is.
Yeah. Proteins are the little parts of your cells that are doing all the work. The simplest known life, I forget, I think it's like 250 or something like that. The simplest known life, something like 250 proteins for the simplest known life. Again, that is probably not the correct number. It's something in that ballpark. Then they've done something called knockout experiments where, okay, this is the simplest life we actually have. Are there things in that we could actually take out and it would still work as a cell? So then you start getting to like the simplest possible life as far as you know it. You can do all that, all right? So you need a couple of hundred proteins for the simplest life that we could consider life. Here's the thing. When you calculate the odds of a medium-length protein forming by chance, you get a huge number. And guess what? The number of particle interactions, possible particle interactions since the Big Bang, you're not even close to getting one medium-length protein by chance. In other words, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. So every particle in the universe interacting at the speed of light for the entire duration of time that we have, you're not even close to getting one protein by chance. You need 250 of them around that for the simplest life the simplest cell that we could actually know would function as a cell. The point is, big universe and lots of time is not helping you. It's still ridiculously, insanely improbable.